Last week, uh, the video emerged of the ISIS or ISIL operative beheading uh, journalist James Foley. Um, Obviously, really sickening image, really grotesque. Um, it's one of these things that caught the public imagination, and rightfully so. It's not new in a certain sense. Al Qaeda has released these types of videos before, and ISIS, as they have spread through Syria and Iraq, have released videos of stoning women to death, of crucifying people, and really just an absolute horror show on social media. This video has had implications that these previous videos have not. ISIS is getting banned from Twitter. They're getting taken off Facebook. But they're very adaptive, and they're actually coming up with alternative strategies and explaining how to their operatives how they can remain operative in social media. And it's very disturbing and it's very fascinating because there's a couple of examples that we have now of how social media really is part of a communications warfare, and organizations like that understand it really agilely and really adeptly, and that's why they're spreading these things. Al Qaeda has this history of releasing these incredibly violent and horrific videos, but also cartels in Mexico, both for positive and negative. Cartels have released images of them distributing food aid after crises. They release glamour shots of them, in SUVs holding machine guns. They've also released footage, horrifically violent images, and done things that are particularly for public consumption. One cartel, after killing several people, stitched their faces on soccer balls. And we see with also Boko Haram is another group that in their choice of attacks, like those girls in the school, and their uses of social media, are leveraging these platforms to not just recruit members, but really show and utterly terrify local populations and global populations. And I think that with ISIS, it represents a very particular challenge because we're in a time when our government and Western governments have lost so much credibility, if they ever had them to begin with, which I don't particularly think they did, but through global surveillance, through violating civil liberties, through stupid projects like, messing around with Twitter and Cuba and all of this, that they have undermined the ability to respond to something like how ISIS is using social media, which is a legitimate and vital part of how to respond to them. And I got to say, it's very important to think rationally about this group, and it's very important that we not get swept up in a wave of fear about them. But at the same time, you have to be real about them and what they represent. I mean, this group represents not only horrific human rights damages in Syria and Iraq, they are a powerful and serious military force. And what they want to do to local populations is only closest analogy really in terms of wanting to wipe out entire populations and set the clock back to zero historically, in a certain sense, is really almost like the Khmer Rouge. So you're looking at a group that's a hybrid, that's basically Al-Qaeda ideology, maybe even harder, with a Khmer Rouge agenda, and then with amazing criminal capacity, operating oil fields, operating extortion and ransom rackets, and with tremendously adept use of social media. That is a threat to our security, and that is a threat to global security. So the question is, how are they doing it? Then they're not just doing these horrific images. They've posted and done Q&As with people where people can ask them questions about how easy it is to join them fighting in the Middle East. As an example, what are the bugs like there? And can they buy an iPhone? Our governments need to restore all of the trust that they have lost. And of course, that's never fully going to happen, but something needs to be done because this is a real choice moment. We had after September 11th, under Bush and Obama, we implemented everything from the invasion of Iraq to a completely out of control drone program to systemic violations of civil liberties. And the whole focus has been on correcting them and taking ourselves out of this self-imposed dark age that we've been in since September 11th. But at the same time, the left needs to understand that not all of these threats are made up and not all of these threats are fantasies. And when you're looking at a group that is literally burying communities alive, crucifying and stoning people, and taking over territory that has real resource, where they can become self-sustaining and project themselves onto the world, that's something real to think about. So we're presented, like it or not, with another opportunity to figure out what is a genuinely progressive way of responding to what is an actual real threat. And I hope that will be food for thought for all of us.